The morning light came through the tall windows of the Galactic University's main lecture hall. The room was very big, with seats going up high on both sides. Students from many different species sat in these seats, waiting for the class to begin. There were Centaurians with their smooth, tall bodies. There were Vorthi with bodies made of hard crystal that shined in the light. There were Krell sitting in the back, their 4 strong arms moving quietly. And there were many others from worlds that HFY had never seen before arriving at the university. HFY was a human, and she looked different from everyone else in the room. Her skin was a light brown color, and she had just 2 arms, like all humans did. She sat in the middle of the lecture hall, trying not to look too nervous. This was her first big day at the Galactic University. She had come here as part of a cultural exchange program, which meant she got to study with aliens from across the galaxy. But it also meant she was the only human in most of her classes. The door at the front of the room opened, and Dr. Teo walked in. He was a Centaurian, very tall and very thin. His skin was light blue, and his head was smooth with no hair. Everything about him looked very smart and very serious. He carried a small device in his hand that controlled all the holograms in the room. Holograms were things made of light that could show pictures and videos in the air, just like magic. But it was really just very good technology. "Good morning, students," Dr. Teo said in a calm, clear voice. "Today we study something interesting. We study the ancient weapons of Earth. We study how humans fought before they had good technology." He moved his hand, and the air in front of the class filled with light. Pictures started to appear, showing different kinds of weapons from human history. The first one was a spear. It was just a long stick with a sharp point at the end. The next was a sword. It was a long, flat piece of metal with a handle. "These tools," Dr. Teo said, pointing at the weapons with his long fingers, "show us how primitive humans really were. Look at this sword. It is made of metal, yes, but look how simple it is. Just metal and a handle, no power source, no technology inside it, nothing smart about it at all." The other students made small sounds that meant they agreed with the professor. A Vorthi student named Kalen pointed at a bow and arrow displayed in the holograms. "Professor, this weapon is so weak," Kalen said. "It can only send 1 arrow at a time. Our weapons can fire hundreds of times in 1 second. "Exactly right," Dr. Teo said, and he smiled. "Exactly right. The humans had very slow weapons. They had weak weapons. And because of this, we know they were not very smart. They did not understand technology very well. If they had been smart, they would have made better weapons much faster." HFY sat quietly and listened. She had known this was coming. When she signed up for the class on xenoanthropology, which was the study of alien peoples, she knew she might hear things like this. People in the galaxy did not understand humans very well. They thought humans were stupid because humans did not have as much technology as other species. But HFY knew something that most people did not know. She had grown up learning about human weapons. Her family had taught her the old ways. Her grandfather had taught her how to hold a sword. Her grandmother had taught her how to use a bow. She had spent many hours practicing with these weapons, and she understood them in a way that Dr. Teo did not. Dr. Teo continued his lecture. He showed more weapons. He showed axes and hammers and spears. Each time he talked about how simple they were, how weak they were, how they proved that humans were not very smart. Humans took thousands of years to go from these simple tools to weapons that actually worked well, Dr. Teo said. "Look at the Krell. The Krell created advanced weapons 10 times faster than humans did. Look at the Vorthi. The Vorthi had energy weapons while humans still played with metal sticks. This shows that humans were slow. It shows that humans were not smart. It shows that humans were not ready to be part of the galactic community." A Gendak student, which was an insect-like being with many legs, made a buzzing sound that meant it agreed. Most of the class seemed to think Dr. Teo was completely right. But Heywan had raised her hand. Dr. Teo saw her hand up in the air. He looked surprised. Humans did not usually ask questions in his class. Humans did not usually speak up when he was teaching. But Heywan had her hand up, and she was looking right at him. "Yes," Dr. Teo said. "Do you have a question?" Heywan stood up slowly. She could feel every eye in the room looking at her now. All the alien students were staring at her. She was the only human they had probably ever met. She took a deep breath and spoke in a clear voice. "With respect, Dr. Teo, I think you are looking at these weapons in the wrong way," Heywan said. "I think you are not seeing something important." The room became very quiet. No student had ever told Dr. Teo that he was wrong about anything. Dr. Teo's eyes got very wide. He looked interested and angry at the same time. "Go ahead," he said slowly. "Tell me what I am not seeing." "You are looking at how fast the weapons are," Heywan said. "You are looking at how powerful they are. You are looking at how much damage they can do. But you are not looking at something else. You are not looking at how they feel to use them. You are not looking at how a person holds them. You are not looking at how a person's body feels when they use them for a long time." Dr. Teo did not say anything. He just waited for her to continue. "When a human uses a weapon like a sword," Heywan said, "the human has to be able to hold it for a long time without getting tired. The human has to be able to move it over and over again without hurting their arms. The human has to be able to use it in many different ways, and the human has to know exactly what they are doing with it. This means the weapon has to be designed in a very special way." She looked around the room. The other students were listening very carefully now. They did not understand what she was talking about, but they wanted to know more. "You said humans were not smart," Heywan said, looking right at Dr. Teo. "But I think humans were very smart. I think humans just thought about weapons in a different way than you do." Dr. Teo leaned back in his chair. His blue face looked thoughtful. "Show me," he said. "Show me what you mean." Heywan walked down to the front of the lecture hall. Her heart was beating very fast. She had never done anything like this before. In the classes on her home world, students did not usually stand up and argue with teachers, but this was different. This was about her people. This was about humans. She stopped in front of the hologram display. All the ancient human weapons were still there, floating in the air made of light. She reached out and touched one of them. The hologram let her grab it and hold it like it was real. She picked up the sword. The sword was not too heavy and not too light. When Heywan held it, her hand fit perfectly on the handle. The handle was not round. It was shaped in a special way so that her fingers could hold it without any pain. The guard, which was the piece that protected her hand, curved up just enough to keep her safe, but not so much that it got in the way of her movement. "Look at this," Heywan said, holding the sword up so everyone could see. "Do you see how the handle curves? Do you see how it is shaped?" She moved the sword slowly through the air, showing how her arm and hand moved when she used it. A human warrior might swing this weapon 10,000 times in one battle. 10,000 times. If the handle was not comfortable, if it was not designed right, the warrior's hand would hurt. The warrior would get tired very fast. By the middle of the fight, the warrior would not be able to move the sword anymore. So the human warriors who came before me, they worked very hard to make the sword feel good to hold. They worked to make it so a person could use it many, many times without their arm hurting. Kellen, the Vorthy student, asked a question. "But that does not sound like something that would make warriors stronger. That sounds like you are trying to make things easy. Warriors should push through pain." "No," Heywan said. "That is not right. Let me show you." She put down the sword and looked at the hologram display. She found what she was looking for. She grabbed a Krell war maul. The maul was a big, heavy weapon. It had a huge head made of metal and a long handle that was very thick. It was the kind of weapon that the Krell used because they had 4 arms and very strong muscles. "Watch what happens," HFY said. She tried to hold the maul like she had seen Krell warriors hold it, but the handle was too thick for her small human hands. When she tried to close her fingers around it, there was still a big gap between her hand and the other side of the handle. She could barely hold it at all. Then she tried to swing the maul. It was so heavy that she had to use both arms and all her strength just to lift it up a little bit. When she tried to swing it the way the Krell did, the weight pulled her arm in the wrong direction. Her wrist bent back in a way that hurt. After just a few swings, she had to stop. Her arm was shaking. "That is uncomfortable," she said, breathing hard. "That is very uncomfortable. This weapon is designed for Krell bodies. It is perfect for Krell. But I am not Krell. I am human. And for a human, this weapon is bad. It is not designed for how my body works." She put the maul down and picked up the sword again. Then she did something that made everyone in the room sit forward in their seats. She started to move. HFY had trained in sword fighting since she was a small child. Her grandfather had been a master of the sword. He had taught her everything he knew. Now, in front of the alien class, she showed them what she could do. She moved the sword fast and slow. She moved it left and right. She moved it in circles and in straight lines. Every movement was smooth and clean. She could feel the sword responding to her, working with her, not against her. After 30 swings, then 50 swings, then 100 swings, her arm was not shaking. She was not breathing hard. She could keep going. "You see?" HFY said, still moving the sword through the air. The humans did not make their weapons simple because they were not smart. They made them this way because they understood something very important. They understood that a warrior is not a machine. A warrior gets tired. A warrior's body can hurt. A warrior can make mistakes when they are tired or in pain. So the humans made weapons that worked with the human body, not against it. She stopped moving and stood still, holding the sword in front of her. "The Krell weapon is stronger. The Krell weapon can probably hit harder than the human sword, but the human sword can be used and used and used. The human sword lets the warrior stay sharp and ready for a long time. The human sword does not make the warrior's body hurt in a way that makes them weak." A different student, one that HFY did not know the name of yet, asked, "But why would that matter? If one weapon is stronger, is that not all that matters?" HFY thought about this question. She thought about what her grandfather had told her. "Because in a real fight, you do not fight for 1 second," she said. "You fight for minutes. You fight for hours sometimes. You fight when you are hungry and tired and scared. In that real fight, a weapon that is comfortable to use is better than a weapon that is strong but makes you tired." Dr. Teo had been sitting very quietly, watching everything HFY did. Now he stood up and walked over to her. He was very tall, and he looked down at her with his blue face. "You are saying that humans understood something about the design of tools that we did not understand," he said. It was not a question. "Yes," HFY said. She was still holding the sword, and she did not look away from the professor's eyes. "I am saying that when we say humans were primitive, we are not looking at the whole picture. We are looking at speed. We are looking at power. But we are not looking at something else. We are not looking at how humans think about using things. We are not looking at how humans think about people's bodies and people's feelings." Dr. Teo did not say anything for a long time. Then he turned to the class. "This is very interesting," he said slowly. "Very interesting indeed. This is not what I expected to learn today, but I think we should explore this idea more. Everyone, please look at the weapons again, but this time, do not look at how strong they are. Look at how they are shaped. Look at how they are made. Try to understand why a human would design them this way." He turned back to HFY. "I think I have been wrong about something," he said. And in the lecture hall of the Galactic University, everyone heard a teacher admit that he had made a mistake. The classroom felt different now. The air seemed lighter, but also more serious. Students who had been sitting back in their seats were now leaning forward. They were thinking about what HFY had said. They were looking at the hologram weapons in a new way. Kalen, the Vorthy student who had questions before, raised his hand again. When Dr. Teo pointed to him, Kalen stood up. "You are saying that humans deliberately designed these weapons to be comfortable," Kalen said. "But why would that be important? Why would a warrior care about comfort?" "A warrior should only care about winning." HFY turned to look at Kalen. She did not seem angry at the question. She seemed like she was happy that someone wanted to understand. "Do you know what my grandfather told me?" she asked. "He told me that a weapon is not just a tool. A weapon is a part of you. When you hold a weapon every day, when you practice with it over and over, it becomes like your own arm. It becomes like your own hand." She held up the sword again. "When the weapon is comfortable in your hand, you can feel what it is doing. You can feel the air when you swing it. You can feel how it hits something. You know exactly where the point of the sword is at every moment. This is because the sword does not hurt your hand. The sword does not make your arm tired. Your mind is free to think about other things, like where the enemy is and how to stay safe." Another student, a Gendak, made a buzzing sound. In the Gendak language, this sound meant a question. The hologram translator showed the words. "But we have computers to help us think about these things. We have machines to tell us where to aim. Why would a human need to think about this?" "Because computers can break," HFY said. "Machines can stop working. But if you understand your weapon, if you know it with your whole body and mind, you will never be completely helpless. This is why the humans made weapons that you could understand just by using them. This is why the humans made weapons that taught you something every time you used them." Dae-sung, another human student, was sitting near HFY. He was not from the same country as HFY, but all humans were rare at the university. Dae-sung stood up now. "My family learned the old ways too," he said. "My grandmother told me something that I think is important. She said that when you use a tool badly, your body tells you right away. Your hand hurts. Your arm gets tired. This teaches you the right way to do things. The right way does not hurt." He walked to the front and took the sword from HFY. Then he showed the class how to hold it wrong. He held it with a loose grip. He held it at a bad angle. He tried to swing it the wrong way. After just a few swings, you could see that his arm was shaking and his hand was hurting. "Now watch," Dae-sung said. He changed his grip. He changed his angle. He moved the way HFY had moved. Now the sword seemed to move smoothly. It seemed like the sword wanted to move this way. The movements looked easy and beautiful. "The weapon tells you the truth," Dae-sung said. "The human weapons were designed so that the weapon itself teaches you. If you do something wrong, you feel it. If you do something right, you feel that too. You feel the difference. Over many battles, over many years of practice, the warrior learns what the weapon wants to teach." Dr. Teo was walking slowly around the room. He was thinking very hard. You could see it on his face. "This is a philosophy," he said slowly. "This is not just about weapons. This is about learning. This is about how humans think about learning and teaching." "Yes," HFY said. "Exactly yes. Humans did not have computers to help them learn. Humans did not have teachers who could just put information directly into their brains. Humans had to learn the hard way, by doing things and making mistakes and feeling the results. So humans made tools that would teach them through use. Humans made tools that would give them feedback." Isal, a Vorthy, who had been quiet until now, asked a question. "So you are saying that the reason human weapons seem simple is because they are actually very complex in a different way. They are complex because they are designed for the human body and mind." "Yes," HFY said. Yes, exactly. When you look at a human sword, you see metal and a handle. It looks simple, but it is actually the result of thousands of years of thinking. Thousands of years of humans trying to understand their own bodies. Thousands of years of humans asking, how can we make this better for the people who use it? The Gendak student made another buzzing sound. But this seems very slow, the translation said. This seems like it would take a very long time to develop weapons this way. It did take a long time, Dae-sung said. It took a very long time. But humans learned something important from this slowness. We learned to think about the people using the tools, not just about the tools themselves. Dr. Teo stopped walking. He looked at both HFY and Dae-sung. I want to see the data, he said. I want to see proof that human weapons created less injury than other weapons. I want to see proof that warrior fatigue was lower with human weapons. I want to see scientific proof that what you are saying is true. HFY smiled. She had been waiting for this question. She had prepared for this. She pulled out a small device and connected it to the hologram display. Suddenly, charts and numbers appeared in the air. The data showed information about Krell warriors. It showed that 34% of Krell warriors suffered from long-term damage to their shoulders and arms. The damage came from using the heavy mauls over many years. Then HFY showed data about human warriors. Only 8% of human warriors suffered from similar damage. 8% compared to 34%. The room became very quiet. This was not opinion anymore. This was numbers. This was proof. Do you see? HFY asked quietly. The human weapons were not just comfortable. They were safer. They were better for the warriors who used them. The humans did not make them comfortable by accident. They made them this way on purpose. They studied their own bodies. They learned what hurt and what did not hurt. And they designed their weapons to work with their bodies, not against them. Dr. Teo looked at the data for a very long time. When he finally turned back to the class, his face looked different. He looked like someone who had learned something important, something that changed how he saw the world. The questions came fast after that. Students who had been quiet before were now talking and asking and arguing. Some students still did not believe what they were hearing. They thought that fast and strong was always better than comfortable and safe. But other students were starting to think differently. Kellen asked a new question. If humans understood ergonomic design so well, why did your species not progress faster to energy weapons? Why did you still use these tools for so long? It was a good question. And HFY took her time answering it. Because, she said, humans understood something that maybe other species did not understand. Humans knew that when you use a tool, that tool changes you. It teaches you things. An energy weapon is very fast. You point it and you press a button and something happens very far away. But with a sword, you have to be very close. You have to look in the eyes of the thing you are fighting. You have to feel what happens when you swing your weapon. You have to feel the result. Dae-sung added something. My ancestors believed that this connection was important. They believed that if you could not feel what you were doing, you could do bad things too easily. They believed that distance from consequences was dangerous. A Krell student, sitting in the back row, made a low sound that meant it was thinking hard. Then it spoke. You are saying that humans did not want to move away from weapons that made them feel the consequences of their actions. Yes, HFY said. Yes, I think that is right. For humans, that feeling of consequence was not a bad thing. It was a good thing. It taught us to be careful. It taught us to only fight when we really needed to fight. Dr. Teo stood up and walked to the display of data. He studied it for a long time. Then he turned to address the whole class. I have been teaching xenoanthropology for 27 years, he said. His voice was very calm and very serious. I have always believed that primitive species develop technology slowly because they are not intelligent. They do not understand how things work. They do not have the mental ability to create advanced machines. He paused and looked at HFY and Dae-sung. But I think I have been wrong. I think I have been measuring development in the wrong way. I have been measuring it by speed, by how fast a species goes from stone tools to energy weapons. But what if speed is not the most important thing? What if the way a species thinks about tools is more important than how fast they develop them? The whole classroom was listening very carefully now. Dr. Tae-oh was one of the most respected teachers at the university. If he was changing his mind about something, it was very important. Humans took a longer time, Dr. Tae-oh continued, because they were asking different questions. They were not asking, what is the most powerful weapon? They were asking, what is the best weapon for a human being to use? These are different questions, and they led to different answers. Isal raised her hand. Are you saying that humans were actually smarter than other species, that they were thinking in a more advanced way? I am saying, Dr. Tae-oh said carefully, that they were thinking in a different way. Whether it is smarter or not is harder to answer. But I do think it means they understood something about technology and about themselves that we need to learn. Now, many students wanted to know more. They wanted to understand this new idea. They asked questions about human tools and human thinking. They asked questions about whether other species had this same kind of thinking. They asked questions about what this meant for how they thought about technology. HFY and Dae-sung answered the questions as best they could. They talked about how humans made tools not just for power, but for safety and comfort. They talked about how humans made tools that gave you feedback so you could learn. They talked about how humans believed that the way you did something was just as important as what you did. One student, a young Vorthi named Mira, asked a question that made everyone think very hard. Did humans not want to be the most powerful? Did humans not want to dominate other species? Dae-sung thought about this carefully. My family taught me that wanting power is easy, he said. Any species can want power. But humans learned something harder. We learned that there are things more important than power. We learned that having power and using it wisely are two different things. HFY added, when humans finally did create weapons that were very powerful, weapons that could destroy entire cities, many humans said no. Many humans said we should not use these weapons. Many humans said we should make laws about what weapons we could use. We had the power to do terrible things, but we chose not to do them. The classroom became very, very quiet. Students were thinking about what this meant. They were thinking about whether their own species had made the same kinds of choices. Dr. Tae-oh walked slowly back to his chair. He sat down and looked at HFY and Dae-sung for a long moment. I would like to ask you something, he said. I would like to ask you to help me understand this better. I would like to ask if you would be willing to meet with me after class. I have many more questions. And I think I need to learn more about this philosophy before I teach about it again. Of course, HFY said. We would be happy to help you understand. Dr. Tae-oh turned to the rest of the class. I think, he said, that we need to think about what we have learned today. We came here thinking we would study primitive human weapons. But instead, we have learned that there is more to understand about how we think about technology. I want everyone to think about this question before next class. The question is, if humans were so primitive, how did they learn to think about technology in a way that seems smarter than how we think about it? The class was dismissed, but nobody left. Students crowded around HFY and Dae-sung, asking more questions. They wanted to know more about human weapons. They wanted to know more about human thinking. They wanted to understand this new way of looking at technology. For the first time since arriving at the Galactic University, HFY did not feel like an outsider. She felt like someone who had something important to teach. 3 days later, HFY sat in Dr. Tae-oh's office. The office was very large, with windows that showed the whole city below. The city was beautiful, with tall buildings that seemed to touch the sky. Dae-sung sat next to her. Dr. Teo was at his desk, with many papers and screens showing information. "I have been researching," Dr. Teo said without greeting. He was very excited. "I have been looking at the history of every species in the galactic community, and I have been asking a question. I have been asking if any other species took a long time to develop technology because they were thinking carefully about it. And you know what I found?" "What?" Heywan asked. "I found that most species did not take a long time," Dr. Teo said. "Most species developed technology as fast as they could. The Krell went from primitive to advanced in just 3,000 years. The Vorthi did it in 2,000 years, but humans took more than 5,000 years. Why? Why would a species deliberately go slower?" "Because," Dae-sung said, "humans make mistakes. And when humans make big mistakes, humans learn from them in a very serious way." Dr. Teo leaned back in his chair. "Tell me about these mistakes." Heywan looked at Dae-sung. They had talked about this before. They had talked about human history and all the terrible things humans had done. But they had also talked about how humans had learned from these things. "Humans created weapons that could destroy entire cities," Heywan said. "We created weapons so powerful that they could kill everyone on a whole planet. When we finally had this power, many humans understood something terrible. We understood that if we were not very careful, we could destroy ourselves. We could make our whole world dead." "So what did you do?" Dr. Teo asked. "We stopped," Dae-sung said. "We made laws about these weapons. We said certain weapons were too dangerous to use. We said we would rather lose wars than use weapons that could destroy the whole world. This was a very hard choice, but we made this choice." Dr. Teo stood up and walked to his window. He looked out at the city for a long time. "I have been thinking about this," he said quietly. "I have been thinking about what it means that humans were willing to limit themselves. On my world, we believe that if you have power, you should use it. That is how civilization works. The strong use their power, and the weak follow or die." He turned back to look at Heywan and Dae-sung. "But humans had power, and you chose not to use all of it. Why?" "Because," Heywan said, "we understood something about what happens when you use power without thinking about the results. We understood that if you hurt people, even if you win the war, something breaks inside you. Something breaks in your society. We learned that you cannot just think about winning. You have to think about what kind of person you become when you fight." Dae-sung added, "When humans made weapons, we thought about the people using them, but we also thought about the people they would be used against. We thought about innocent people. We thought about children. And this made us want to be very careful about when we used weapons at all." Dr. Teo sat back down. He put his face in his hands for a moment. When he looked up, his expression had changed. "I think," he said slowly, "that this is what I have been missing. I have been studying technology as if it was separate from the people who use it. But humans do not think about technology that way. Humans think about technology as something that is connected to people. Technology changes people, and people change technology." He pulled out a new report. "I have been analyzing human history more carefully. Look at this. Humans created many technologies. But they also created laws and ethics about how to use them. When humans created writing, they had to decide what should be written and what should be kept secret. When humans created medicine, they had to decide who should get the medicine and who should not. When humans created the ability to change the nature of life itself, they stopped and argued about whether they should do it." "But your species did not stop," Heywan said. "Your species just went forward with everything you could create." "Yes," Dr. Teo said. "Yes, we did. And I am wondering now if that was a mistake." Over the next hour, they talked about many things. They talked about human philosophy and human religion and human art. They talked about how all of these things came from humans trying to understand what was right and what was wrong. They talked about how humans had wars and violence and terrible things, but humans also had people who tried to stop these things and make the world better. "I want to show you something," Daesung said. He pulled out a small device from his pocket. It showed a video. The video showed an old human man teaching a young human boy how to use a sword. In the video, the old man was showing the boy how to hold the sword. He was showing him where to stand and how to move, but he was also saying something important. "When you hold this sword," the old man said in the video, "you hold the power to hurt someone. You hold the power to kill. This is a serious thing. This is not a game. This is why we teach you to respect this weapon. This is why we teach you to only use this weapon when it is absolutely necessary. Because once you hurt someone with a weapon, you cannot undo it. That person is hurt. That is forever." Dr. Teo watched the video very carefully. When it finished, he was very quiet. "This is why humans took a long time," Haiwan said softly. "Humans were not slow because we were not smart. We were slow because we were trying to think about what we were doing. We were trying to understand the results of our technology before we created things that could not be undone." "And now?" Dr. Teo asked. "What do you think now that humans are part of the galactic community?" "Now," Haiwan said, "we are wondering if other species might want to think about this too. We are wondering if maybe the galaxy would be better if everyone thought a little bit about consequences. If everyone thought a little bit about the people who use the tools, not just about the tools themselves." Dr. Teo smiled. It was a small smile, but it was real. "I think," he said, "that I have a lot to learn about human wisdom. I think I need to learn this, not just for my research, but for myself, for my own understanding of what technology should be." He looked at both of them. "Will you teach me more? Will you come to my class and tell them what you have told me?" "Yes," Haiwan said. "We will teach them." As they left Dr. Teo's office and walked out into the bright afternoon, Haiwan realized that she had come to the university thinking she was very alone. But now she understood something. She was not alone. She was carrying the wisdom of thousands of years of human ancestors. She was carrying stories and lessons that the galaxy needed to hear.